I think Wednesday's episode of Beyond the Gates is setting up several important character moments. But the storyline that immediately grabbed my attention is Leslie finding herself in another major confrontation. This time, she isn't clashing with Kat or anyone connected to her past. Instead, she goes head-to-head with Garland Memorial's new chief of staff, Dr. Monica McCormick. To me, this feels like the beginning of a brand new rivalry that could have long-term consequences. Leslie Dana Thomas has always been the kind of person who refuses to back down. She has a strong personality, and whether people like her or not, she always fights for what she believes in. More importantly, she fiercely protects the small circle of people she truly cares about. That same determination now extends to the Phoenix Street Free Clinic, a project she helped build and deeply believes in. From what I understand, Monica's first major decision as Garland Memorial's chief of staff is to end the hospital's partnership with the Free Clinic. That immediately creates conflict because Garland has been supplying volunteers ever since the clinic opened. I was wondering if Monica is simply trying to distance the hospital from anything connected to the recent scandals. After everything involving the warehouse, Dr. Leah Whitmore's downfall, and the exposure of the Red Market plasma operation, maybe she believes cutting ties is the safest move for Garland's reputation. Ironically, Leah Whitmore never liked Leslie either, but she had a completely different reason for keeping the clinic around. She saw it as the perfect cover to divert attention away from the hospital while secretly expanding the plasma ring operation. Monica appears to have a very different agenda, but her decision still puts her directly in Leslie's path. I think this confrontation has the potential to become one of the show's strongest ongoing rivalries. Another storyline that caught my attention involves Tomas after his failed marriage proposal to Kat. Looking back, I think the proposal was poorly timed from the very beginning. Interrupting Vernon's speech during Kat's surprise welcome home celebration created an incredibly awkward situation for everyone involved. Kat handled it as gently as she could, pulling Tomas aside and explaining that she simply wasn't ready to get engaged after everything she had just been through. He seemed to accept her answer, but I wasn't completely convinced that he truly moved on. The latest spoilers suggest that Kat makes an impulsive purchase, and whatever she buys doesn't sit well with Tomas. To me, this feels like the proposal rejection may have affected him more deeply than he initially admitted. After donating part of her liver to save Eva's life, Kat has every reason to do something for herself. A little self-care seems completely understandable. Still, Tomas apparently views the situation differently, and I think this disagreement could expose deeper cracks in their relationship. Jacob and Naomi also seem to be heading in a more positive direction. If I'm being honest, I think they've been emotionally disconnected for quite some time, even before Jacob's undercover mission as Rashad. Since wrapping up that dangerous assignment, Jacob has thrown himself into the investigation to catch the Impaler, leaving very little room to repair his marriage. It looks like the couple finally finds time to reconnect, and I hope this marks the beginning of a stronger chapter for them. At the same time, Ted and Shanice finally get an opportunity to focus on each other again. Considering everything Ted has endured over the past several weeks, this moment feels well-deserved. Watching both of his daughters fighting for their lives after the tornado was heartbreaking. Eva desperately needed a liver transplant, while Kat made the incredible decision to become her donor. Now that both daughters are safely home and recovering, Ted can finally take a breath and reconnect with Shanice. I think the show needs moments like this to balance out all the recent tension. Then there's Grayson, whose life has changed dramatically over the past few months. After surviving everything connected to the plasma ring, receiving immunity, and repairing his relationship with Ashley, it finally seemed like he was moving forward. That's why the unexpected offer he receives immediately raises questions. I was wondering whether this opportunity is somehow connected to the free clinic, or if it's something completely unrelated that could change his future. Either way, it feels like the kind of twist that could test the progress he and Ashley have worked so hard to rebuild. Overall, I think this episode is less about shocking twists and more about laying the foundation for several important storylines. Leslie's battle with Monica could reshape the future of the free clinic. Tomas and Kat may be facing the first real test of their relationship. Jacob and Naomi finally have a chance to reconnect. Ted and Shanice are getting some much-needed happiness. And Grayson's mysterious new opportunity could open an entirely new chapter. I may be right or wrong, but this episode feels like it's planting the seeds for conflicts and relationships that will continue to grow in the weeks ahead. I think Tomas visiting Eva while she's still recovering says a lot about where his head is after Kat rejected his marriage proposal. Even though everyone around them seems worried that Kat's decision could have lasting consequences, Tomas doesn't really know where else to turn. When Isaiah quietly excuses himself to give them some privacy, Tomas finally opens up. He admits that Kat turning down his proposal hurt him deeply. What I found interesting is that he immediately questions why he ran to Eva again. He even remembers that the last time he and Kat were struggling, he sought comfort from Eva, and that eventually led to them sleeping together. To me, that shows he's aware of his own pattern, even if he doesn't fully understand why he keeps repeating it. Eva doesn't let him off the hook. She calls him out until he finally admits the truth. She's basically his only real friend. That confession feels more honest than anything else he says. Instead of encouraging emotional dependence, Eva actually gives him mature advice, telling him that if he wants his relationship with Kat to survive, he needs to communicate openly with her instead of running away whenever things get difficult. At the same time, Kat is trying to repair the damage in her own way. She tells Chelsea she's thinking about buying a condo and asking Tomas to move in with her. I was wondering whether this idea is really coming from love or from guilt after rejecting his proposal. Chelsea seems to have the same concern. She questions whether this is simply a consolation prize and warns Kat that making such a major commitment for the wrong reasons could create even bigger problems later. Meanwhile, Joey continues trying to stay ahead of potential trouble. He tells Vanessa he's already taken steps to make sure Deanna won't uncover anything suspicious while working with her mother at the real estate company. He's even putting his money laundering operation on hold through Vanessa's business. What stood out to me is that Joey insists if everything falls apart, he wants Vanessa to remain completely clean. Once Deanna goes back to school, he believes they can quietly return to business as usual. Joey also advises Vanessa to distance herself from Heart Attach for now, but she refuses. She's determined to keep moving forward despite the risks. Ironically, that determination creates another opportunity when Kat calls looking for a condo. Vanessa immediately realizes this could become Deanna's first official client, bringing everyone even closer together. Elsewhere, Randy reassures Joey that his instincts about Deanna were correct. Despite everything that's happened, she still hasn't changed her opinion about Vanessa's relationship with Joey. That tells me the tension surrounding Joey's secrets is far from over. While Vanessa continues working on Heart Attach, Deanna arrives with exciting news that Kat has found the condo she wants. Everything seems to be falling into place until Kat makes the big move and asks Tomas to live there with her. Instead of accepting, Tomas completely surprises her by saying it won't work for him. To me, that's the biggest turning point of the episode. Kat appears to believe moving in together could heal the damage caused by rejecting his proposal. But Tomas's response suggests his emotional wounds run much deeper than she realized. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but this rejection feels less about the condo itself and more about trust, timing, and whether their relationship can truly recover after such a painful moment. The episode closes with another intriguing tease as Deanna prepares to reconnect with a familiar face. I have a feeling that conversation could push several ongoing storylines in unexpected directions, especially with Joey's secrets becoming increasingly difficult to keep hidden. I think Tuesday's episode of Beyond the Gates is shaping up to be one of those emotional chapters where nearly every major storyline reaches an important turning point. While there are plenty of dramatic developments happening across Fairmont Crest, the emotional center of the episode is clearly Anita, as she waits to learn the results of her lumpectomy. To me, Anita's storyline carries the most weight because it isn't just about her health, it's about how the entire Dupree family responds to the uncertainty. Vernon, Nicole, and Danny stand beside her throughout the wait, showing just how close this family has become during her cancer journey. I was wondering whether the writers are preparing viewers for a hopeful breakthrough or another heartbreaking setback. If Anita receives positive news and the surgery successfully removed every sign of cancer, it would mark a major victory after everything she has endured. It wouldn't necessarily mean her journey is over, but it would give both Anita and her family a reason to breathe again. On the other hand, if the results aren't what everyone hopes for, the entire family could be facing another difficult chapter filled with more treatments and emotional challenges. Either outcome has the potential to reshape the family's story moving forward. Another storyline that caught my attention involves Joey and Vanessa. Their relationship has always balanced romance with business, but it feels like Joey is about to make a decision that could redefine both. Vanessa has made it clear that she wants to be Joey's equal in every sense, personally and professionally. She already proved herself by successfully managing the Heart Attach app, showing she can handle responsibility. Even with that success, Joey has never been someone who fully lets his guard down. I think that's what makes his latest decision so interesting. He could finally reward Vanessa's loyalty by giving her greater access to his operation, signaling that he truly trusts her. But knowing Joey's cautious nature, I also wouldn't be surprised if he limits her involvement instead, believing that keeping her at a distance is the safest way to protect both himself and his criminal empire. Either choice would reveal a lot about where Joey's mindset is heading. Joey's distrust also extends to Deanna. Although she has been repairing her relationship with her mother, and appears to have accepted Joey and Vanessa's relationship, Joey still isn't convinced she's being completely honest. Because of those suspicions, he assigns Randy to secretly keep an eye on her. At the same time, Deanna reconnects with an old friend. I may be wrong, but all signs seem to point toward Randy becoming that familiar face in her life again. If that's the case, it creates an interesting dynamic, because Randy will be trying to gain Deanna's trust while secretly searching for evidence that confirms Joey's suspicions. Whether he uncovers anything meaningful remains the biggest question. Meanwhile, Kat continues processing the surprise proposal Tomas made during her welcome home party. She wasn't ready to accept, but she also made it clear that her feelings for Tomas haven't changed. Instead of ending the relationship, they agreed to move forward together without rushing into an engagement. Now Chelsea steps in to help Kat sort through everything she's feeling. I think this conversation could be exactly what Kat needs to better understand her own emotions. Rather than focusing only on whether she should marry Tomas, she may finally decide what kind of future she truly wants with him. Their discussion could become the foundation for the next stage of their relationship. Eva's recovery also continues after her recent surgery. She and Isaiah are settling back into everyday life, hoping for a period of peace after everything they've experienced. However, that quiet recovery may not last long because an unexpected visitor arrives at their home. The identity of this mystery guest is being kept secret, which immediately makes me wonder whether the visitor brings comfort, surprising news, or an entirely new complication. Depending on who appears, Eva's recovery could take an emotional turn that no one sees coming. Overall, I think this episode is less about explosive twists and more about decisions, uncertainty, and emotional consequences. Every storyline feels like it's reaching a crossroads. Anita waits for life-changing medical news. Joey questions who deserves his trust. Randy begins a dangerous undercover assignment. Kat reevaluates her future with Tomas, and Eva's recovery is interrupted by an unexpected arrival. Individually, each story moves its characters forward, but together they create an episode that feels like the beginning of several major new chapters in Fairmont Crest. I think Tuesday's episode of Beyond the Gates is shaping up to be one of those emotional and suspenseful chapters where almost every storyline takes an important step forward. There are heartfelt family moments, relationship drama, and a dangerous game beginning behind the scenes. The biggest emotional moment to me has to be Anita Dupree receiving the results of her lumpectomy. After everything she's been through, this is the moment everyone has been waiting for. Vernon, Nicole, and Danny will all be by her side, which shows just how close the Dupree family becomes when it truly matters. I'm hoping this finally brings some good news, but soap operas rarely make things that simple. Even if the outcome is positive, I wouldn't be surprised if there is still another obstacle waiting around the corner. Another storyline that caught my attention is Kat Richardson turning to Chelsea Hamilton after Tomas Navarro's failed proposal. I think Tomas made a huge mistake by proposing in front of Kat's entire family. That kind of pressure can make anyone uncomfortable, especially if they aren't emotionally ready. From my perspective, Kat's decision to say no was completely understandable. It wasn't necessarily a rejection of Tomas himself. It was more about the timing. Chelsea will likely reassure Kat that she made the right choice and remind her that no one should feel forced into such a life-changing decision. At the same time, I can also imagine Kat wondering if she hurt Tomas more than she intended. Even when someone knows they made the right decision, guilt can still creep in afterward. Meanwhile, things are becoming much more dangerous for Joey Armstrong. Randy Parker officially begins the mission Joey assigned him after growing suspicious of Deanna McBride. Joey sensed that Deanna's sudden attempt to reconnect with her mother, Vanessa McBride, wasn't simply about repairing their relationship. I think his instincts are right, because Deanna clearly seems to have a larger plan in motion. Randy's job is to reconnect with Deanna and quietly figure out what she's really planning. The interesting part is that Joey has no idea Deanna's real goal may actually be exposing and bringing him down. That creates a fascinating battle where both sides believe they're the ones gathering information while secretly being investigated themselves. Deanna's interest in joining Vanessa's real estate business also raises plenty of questions. On the surface, it looks like she's trying to rebuild her relationship with her mother. But I think there's a strategic reason behind it. If Vanessa's business is connected to Joey's illegal money laundering operation, then getting inside that business could give Deanna exactly the evidence she needs. Joey certainly seems worried, and for good reason. I wouldn't be surprised if he immediately changes the way he operates to protect himself. If he removes Vanessa's real estate business from his laundering operation, it could make Deanna's investigation much more difficult, while also creating new problems for Vanessa, who may not even realize why Joey suddenly changes his plans. Finally, there's the mystery surrounding an unexpected visitor arriving to see Isaiah Hawthorne and Eva Thomas. Eva is still recovering from both her surgery and the devastating tornado injuries, so almost anyone stopping by would be meaningful. My first thought is that Kat could be the surprise visitor, especially if she wants to check on Eva while dealing with her own emotional struggles. Of course, this could also be someone completely unexpected who brings another twist to an already packed episode. Overall, I think this episode balances emotional family moments with growing suspense exceptionally well. Anita's medical results could bring either relief or heartbreak. Kat continues to sort through complicated emotions after rejecting Tomas's proposal, and Joey's growing paranoia may actually prove justified as Deanna quietly moves closer to uncovering his secrets. At the same time, the mystery visitor adds another layer of curiosity that could set up even bigger developments for the episodes ahead. I think Tuesday's episode of Beyond the Gates is shaping up to be an emotional one, with the Dupree family facing one of their most difficult moments together. The biggest focus is Anita Dupree's lumpectomy. Danny, Nicole, and Vernon gather with her as they wait for the results. And to me, this feels like it's going to be less about medical updates and more about the strength of family. Anita will try to stay brave on the surface, but I don't think anyone could hide the anxiety that comes with waiting for life-changing news. Since anything can happen, it's understandable that she's preparing herself for every possible outcome. What stands out to me is how the Duprees continue to support one another without hesitation. Their unconditional love becomes Anita's emotional shield during one of the hardest moments of her life. While they wait, I expect they'll reflect on happier memories, share stories, and remind each other of everything they've overcome together. Those quiet family conversations could end up being just as powerful as the medical news itself. Meanwhile, Joey Armstrong seems determined to protect himself from every possible threat. I think he's becoming even more calculated as he tries to keep control of the people around him. Instead of pushing Vanessa McBride away completely, he appears ready to reveal parts of his darker business dealings. My guess is that he wants her to understand why he refuses to trust Deanna McBride and why keeping certain secrets is necessary from his perspective. Even so, I think this decision carries a huge risk. Once Vanessa sees just how dangerous Joey's world really is, she'll likely understand his reasoning. At the same time, she'll realize it means keeping her own daughter at a distance, and that's a heartbreaking position for any mother to be in. On the other side of town, Deanna is genuinely happy to reconnect with Randy Parker. Their reunion looks friendly on the surface, but I think there's much more happening underneath. Since Randy was Doug McBride's close friend, it makes sense that Deanna would assume he's still determined to find whoever was responsible for Doug's death. I believe Randy's investigation may eventually point him toward Joey. However, another concern could quickly take priority. If Randy discovers that Deanna is still seeing and speaking with Doug's ghost, he may become far more worried about her emotional well-being than the investigation itself. Whether those experiences are supernatural or symbolic, Randy will probably see someone who needs protection. To me, this puts Randy in an incredibly difficult position. He'll want to keep Deanna safe while quietly continuing to investigate Joey behind the scenes. I may be right or wrong, but I have a feeling it's only a matter of time before Randy uncovers one of Joey's biggest secrets. If that happens, he'll find himself caught between exposing the truth and protecting the people he cares about most. Overall, I think this episode will balance heartfelt family drama with growing suspense. While Anita's health crisis brings the Duprees closer together, Joey's dangerous secrets and Randy's investigation continue pushing the story toward what could become one of the show's biggest confrontations. I think Beyond the Gates wasted no time getting things moving once the new episodes returned after the 4th of July break. After a week of reruns, the story jumps forward, and several major storylines begin evolving at the same time. Kat and Eva have both recovered from surgery and are finally released from the hospital. But to me, it feels like their emotional journeys are only beginning. One of the biggest moments centers on Tomas and Kat. I was wondering whether Tomas would wait before taking such a huge step, especially after everything Kat has been through. Instead, he decides to move forward with his proposal, despite almost everyone around him believing the timing is wrong. Nicole and Ted even tell Anita and Vernon about his plan before Kat's welcome home party. And both Vernon and Anita immediately feel that Kat deserves more time to recover before facing another life-changing decision. That concern ends up proving justified. Just as Vernon begins giving a heartfelt speech during the celebration, Tomas interrupts the moment by getting down on one knee. Rather than creating the romantic scene he imagined, the proposal makes the entire room uncomfortable. Everyone falls silent, and Kat clearly isn't ready for such a public moment. To me, Kat's response is one of the strongest parts of the episode. Instead of rejecting Tomas outright, She asks him to speak privately. She explains that she absolutely wants to marry him someday, but she doesn't want their engagement to happen simply because they both survived a traumatic disaster. I think that's a very mature way of looking at their relationship. She makes it clear that love isn't the issue, the timing is. A commitment this important should come from genuine readiness, not from emotions heightened by surviving a life-threatening event. Tomas listens to her instead of arguing, which I think shows real growth on his part. Once they return to the party, Vernon helps ease the awkward atmosphere by raising a toast celebrating Kat's strength and recovery, instead of focusing on the interrupted proposal. It allows the gathering to end on a much warmer and more positive note. Meanwhile, Joey's suspicions continue growing, and I don't think he's buying Deanna's recent behavior for a second. While Vanessa and Deanna spend the day at the spa, Deanna keeps steering the conversation toward her late father. On the surface, everything appears friendly, but Joey believes there's something much deeper going on. His concerns become serious enough that he orders Randy to keep an eye on Deanna. Randy isn't exactly comfortable with the assignment because Doug is his best friend, putting him in an awkward position. Even so, Joey refuses to back down. From his perspective, Deanna's sudden support of both him and Vanessa simply doesn't add up. Things become even more complicated when Vanessa announces that Deanna wants to join her real estate agency. Joey immediately objects because he's convinced Deanna has hidden motives. Vanessa, however, sees the situation very differently. She chooses to trust her daughter and hires her anyway, creating another disagreement between Joey and Vanessa that could easily grow into a much bigger conflict later. I may be wrong, but this feels less like a simple business decision and more like the beginning of another family power struggle. The investigation into the impaler also continues to build quietly in the background. Jacob starts believing the serial criminal may have disappeared because there hasn't been any recent activity. Marcel, however, isn't convinced. He argues that criminals like this rarely stay hidden forever and will eventually make a mistake that exposes them. I think Marcel's perspective carries a lot of weight, and it's interesting to see Jacob seriously consider his reasoning instead of dismissing it. That partnership could become increasingly important as the investigation moves forward. Outside of the major conflicts, there are also several smaller moments that help show how life in Fairmont Crest is gradually returning to normal. Joey and Vanessa are back from their short trip. Martin, Smitty, and their children return from the Bahamas, and Leslie and Darlene prepare a thoughtful welcome home for Eva. Anita also receives encouraging news after learning that her previous television appearance has inspired more women to get tested, giving her storyline an uplifting direction amid all the drama. Overall, I think this episode does a good job balancing emotional character moments with the show's larger ongoing mysteries. Kat's decision to delay her engagement feels realistic, rather than dramatic for the sake of drama. Joey's growing distrust of Deanna continues building tension, and the Impaler investigation quietly reminds viewers that an even bigger threat is still looming over Fairmont Crest. Instead of relying on shocking twists alone, the episode focuses on believable emotional consequences. And to me, that's what makes these storylines feel compelling going forward. I think Keith D. Robinson has managed to build an interesting balance between his acting career and his passion for music. While many viewers know him as Dr. Ted Richardson on Beyond the Gates, he's also preparing for a major moment outside the soap world with the release of his new album, Love Episodic 2, The Algorithm. To me, it's impressive because Ted Richardson has been at the center of some of the show's biggest and most emotional storylines. He was introduced as a respected doctor and the devoted husband of Dr. Nicole Dupree Richardson. But everything changed when Leslie Dana Thomas exposed their past affair, revealing that Eva was actually Ted's daughter. That single revelation completely shattered Ted's marriage and sent his family into chaos. I think one of the most interesting parts of Ted's story has been watching him deal with the consequences of his own decisions. Nicole was devastated and chose to file for divorce, while Ted struggled to reconnect with his family. His relationships with Martin and Kat became strained, even as he desperately tried to win Nicole back. At the same time, he wanted to be there for Eva, creating an emotional balancing act that never seemed to get any easier. Then the writers added even more complications. Ted found himself growing close to Shanice Johnson, and their relationship eventually led to another unexpected twist when Shanice revealed she was pregnant. Whether viewers supported Ted or criticized his choices, I think it's fair to say the character rarely had a moment of peace. Ted's past romance with June Carter also added another layer to his complicated history. More recently, he became caught in the emotional conflict between Kat and Eva. When Eva's health took a dangerous turn and she desperately needed a liver transplant, Ted pleaded with Kat to help save her sister. Despite everything that had happened between them, Kat ultimately donated part of her liver, creating one of the soap's most emotional family moments. Away from the drama of Beyond the Gates, Keith D. Robinson is focusing on music. His upcoming album, Love Episodic 2: The Algorithm, highlights another side of his talent. From what I've seen, he brings the same confidence and charisma to the stage that fans have come to expect from his television performances. Before launching his City Winery tour in Atlanta this August, Keith is hosting an album listening party in Atlanta on July 11th. He has also been promoting the project with live performances, including his lead single, Up on a TL, which he recently performed on Extra. I think live performances are always a great way for artists to connect with audiences, and this event should give fans an early chance to experience the new music before the tour officially begins. To me, it's always interesting to see soap actors showcase talents beyond daytime television. Keith D. Robinson has continued to develop both his acting and music careers, and it will be exciting to see how fans respond to this latest chapter while Ted Richardson's dramatic journey continues to unfold on Beyond the Gates. I think Joey is at his most dangerous when he starts asking questions. Whenever he becomes suspicious, he rarely lets anything go. And this time, it looks like Randy is the one being pulled into another risky assignment. To me, the biggest question isn't whether Joey will uncover the truth. It's whether this mission will end up creating even bigger problems for him. The week begins on a much happier note, with Kat finally returning home after her major surgery. Seeing her family welcome her back with a surprise celebration feels like a much-needed break from all the tension. Anita and Vernon open their home for the occasion, and even Ted is there to greet Kat with a warm hug. After everything she's been through, it was nice to see everyone united for a positive moment. Of course, that peaceful atmosphere doesn't last very long. The story quickly shifts back to Joey's casino, where his instincts are clearly telling him something isn't right. He asks Randy a simple but loaded question. Would Deanna recognize him? When Randy hesitates, Joey reveals that Deanna herself is the assignment. I was immediately curious about what Joey is really trying to accomplish here. Randy has a believable connection to Deanna because of his longtime friendship with Doug, so he can approach her without raising immediate suspicion. We even see Randy giving Deanna a hug, which makes it seem like Joey wants someone on the inside, rather than confronting her directly. To me, Joey still doesn't believe Deanna's sudden change of heart about accepting his relationship with Vanessa. That turnaround happens so quickly that it probably feels suspicious to him as well. Instead of trusting appearances, he's sending Randy to quietly investigate. The problem is that the weekly previews suggest Randy isn't comfortable with this assignment at all. That makes me wonder if his loyalty to Joey could eventually be tested. Meanwhile, the legal battle surrounding Madison moves back into the spotlight. Haley stands firmly beside Bill, confidently telling Mike Davis that he's crazy if he thinks he can win the case. I find that scene especially interesting because Haley is doing everything possible to appear completely loyal to Bill while secretly plotting against him. The contrast between her public support and her private intentions makes every conversation she has feel layered with deception. Mike, however, doesn't seem intimidated in the slightest. His confidence remains unshaken as he insists that he knows he can win, setting the stage for what looks like another intense courtroom showdown. Bill appears ready to move forward immediately, suggesting he has no interest in delaying the inevitable confrontation. The emotional storyline that caught my attention the most involves Naomi and Danny. Danny suggests that if Naomi had looked for comfort outside her marriage, people might actually understand. At first, it almost sounds as though she believes Naomi had an affair, whether emotional or physical. But Naomi's heartbreaking response points in an entirely different direction. She admits that she's been lying to her husband for months. That confession feels incredibly significant. I may be wrong, but it really seems like the story is finally moving toward Naomi revealing the truth about testing positive for the BRCA gene. This secret has weighed on her for a long time, and I think it's reached the point where continuing to hide it is becoming impossible. If that reveal finally happens, it could become one of the week's most emotional moments. Over at the hospital, a completely new rivalry appears to be taking shape. Monica, the new chief of staff, wastes no time making her authority known by announcing that the partnership between Garland Memorial and Leslie's free clinic is officially over. Leslie is understandably shocked by the decision. I don't think this conflict is simply about hospital politics. The fallout from the Red Market plasma scandal has clearly damaged trust between the clinic and the hospital, and Monica seems determined to draw a firm line. Leslie will almost certainly try to repair the relationship, but Monica doesn't look like someone who will be easily persuaded. This could develop into one of the show's strongest professional rivalries. Finally, there's Tomas. Despite everyone around him questioning whether it's the right decision, he appears ready to move forward with his plan anyway. He proposes to Kat, leaving her visibly stunned. I was honestly left wondering how she'll respond. Her expression suggests she wasn't expecting this moment at all. Whether the answer is yes, no, or simply not yet, I think this proposal has the potential to change both of their futures in a major way. Overall, this week's episodes seem to balance heartfelt family moments with growing suspicion, hidden secrets, courtroom battles, workplace power struggles, and a proposal that could completely reshape one of the show's central relationships. If even half of these storylines deliver on their potential, it looks like the drama is only beginning.